Hey, this is Brian again, and I'd like to ask you to do a favor. We can't do this work without people like you, so if you can, please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about Bring Back the Porch.
You're only effective for a very short time in the water, just due to the cold. Mm-hmm. Even in the summer, when it's as hot as it gets, the water still doesn't get that warm. So by being able to work from a platform that's warm, and a platform that's not compromised by water, and you'll be able to be on top of it, oftentimes you can effect a much safer rescue. That's a lot smoother.
This episode of Bring Back the Porch brought to you by Medicine Hat Monumental, crafting quality memorials of distinction since 1970.
So today we're at Fire Station number 1. We are looking at what's going on here for jet boat training with the Medicine Hat Fire Department. And you've been working with these fellows for the last couple of days. You're about to hop in the boat with them. What is the biggest safety risk for these people when they're out on the water?
So if you're talking about the firefighters, I can answer that first, and they can answer to the public. So any time firefighters are working on the water, they're working in a relentless environment. And the water, while it is relentless, it is predictable. And once you kind of learn the rules and you learn how to read what the river is doing, you can operate in a safe manner. Firefighters, when they're going into a response for somebody that's in trouble in the water, oftentimes are having to deal with an environment that can be quite chaotic. So the skills that we teach, and the jet boat skills in particular, these gentlemen also took a course last week or the week before for the actual surface skills where they're in the water. The skills they're learning today is how to handle a jet boat. You can have all kinds of different jet boats, but the principles of how they operate and how the fire service operates them, pretty similar. So these firefighters today, in the water that they're going to be working in, they've already done some basic maneuvering skills. And we usually work with departments like this to make sure that they're hitting a basic competency. With the fire service, there's certain standards they have to meet, and the standards they meet have to do with training certain types of skills that they have to have check-offs. We call them JPRs. And once they go through that, it just also reminds them sometimes, because there's so many things you have to train as a firefighter. It reminds everybody to keep current with things. So that's what we're doing today. When it comes to safety with the public in the water, oftentimes it's the unexpected that happens. The water can be moving, like right now it's in flood stage, and it can change in the next day. So sometimes they have plans, sometimes they might not be as confident as swimmers as they thought they were. They're not wearing the right gear. Anybody that's working in or around the water or playing in the water should have the right gear. So typically that's a life jacket or a PFD, self-rescue equipment, that type of thing. And depending on what activity they're engaging in, there's usually more safety or less safety, just depending on what they're doing. And so when firefighters are responding to that, it's usually because everything's gone wrong. And when they're doing that, they just have to be smart, efficient, and a lot of times just courageous, because it's not something that most people want to do, is put themselves in harm's way. And to limit the risk as much as we can by training, that's a really good thing.
I know that in conversations with the chief and some of the firefighters, they planned for the worst, they prepare for the worst, and they hope they never need to use it. A jet boat like this, what advantage does that give them in the water, say, as opposed to just jumping in? How does it help them help people more?
Well, we live in, I come from Calgary, but same temperature of water. You're only effective for a very short time in the water, just due to the cold. And even in the summer, when it's as hot as it gets, the water still doesn't get that warm. So by being able to work from a platform that's warm, and a platform that's not compromised by water, and you'll be able to be on top of it, oftentimes you can effect a much safer rescue, and it's a lot smoother. Now, dealing with the patient getting into the jet boat, that can be kind of hard sometimes. So when you have a nice, dry, stable platform, and you're able to work with the patient, sometimes the only motive you need to, or the only thing I should say, you need to do with the jet boat is get the person to shore. So we practice a skill called ferrying, where a rescuer will hold on to the person, and it's very low speed, but it's just controlled, and will just take the person over to the shore. And what that does a lot of times is it just keeps everybody from being exhausted. Exhausted people make mistakes. And it doesn't matter whether you're a firefighter. Sometimes we like to think, I'm a firefighter as well. We like to think that we're unable to get exhausted, but the water can take it out of you pretty quick. And if you have multiple patients to deal with or multiple victims in a scene, and you can just be systematic and organized and efficient, you can usually affect a much better outcome. So.
The South Saskatchewan right now is very high. How does that affect the training?
Yeah, so where I typically teach, the rivers are usually moving pretty quick. So I'm in my comfort zone with this. One of the things that's kind of funny about a jet boat is a jet boat works really well in water that's 2 feet deep, because the jet actually pushes off the bottom, kind of like if you're swimming in a deep end of the pool. There's nothing really to push off, but when you're swimming in the shallow end, you can push off of it and get a bit going. A jet boat, to really simplify it, kind of works like that. The jet boat that Medicine Hat has is an outboard jet, which is just a different type of jet boat. There's other boats that they're looking at too, as boats time out and need maintenance, and it's time to replace them. Inboard jets. What it all comes down to is that when you're in shallow water, that's where jets really, really thrive. Typically, departments that have big lakes that don't have shallow bottoms will use a prop drive, and it's just a different type of means to push the boat.
So they might be a little bit excited to be able to be in this faster moving water.
Yeah, and not drag your knees. Some days the shallow water can be a bit unpredictable. One of the hazards that we deal with on a day like today is there's a lot of turbidity in the water. So that's the inability to see the bottom. There's just suspended mud and stuff from the runoff. So you just have to be real careful, and we use certain techniques to limit our chance of getting squished. It's basically what it comes down to, right?
So we should let people know that when they see this footage that we're about to shoot, the people in the water are actual Medicine Hat firefighters.
Absolutely.
They are in training, and they are not in peril at this point, but they are putting themselves in a little peril to be in that fast water, and kind of going for it to help their members learn.
So, and everything that we do when we train, there's a very specific formula that we follow, and it's the same through all firefighting, right? You want to train realistically, because drawing pictures on a chalkboard or a whiteboard doesn't really teach you lessons, and some of the lessons can be a little bit bumpy sometimes, but that's totally fine. The level of risks that we're dealing with for firefighters and today in a training environment is quite low, because things are predictable today, because we know what we're doing. Our lesson plan is very thought out. That changes when it's a call, because the lesson plan is whatever you're about to do, right?
Yeah.
So I would say in terms of the level of peril, the risk is minimal today. And part of that's just because these guys are really good. They know what they're doing.
I know when we'd done a session a few weeks ago with the firefighters who were learning new hose techniques and switching from a shotgun hose into a different kind of nozzle. One of the things they talked about was muscle memory and the ability to try things when they're in training, so that they know physically how they're going to be reacting at the time that they're in that, right? So I'm assuming in the water it's kind of the same thing. You have to be practicing those skills with your hands and with your legs about how you're moving things, how you're practicing, right?
So there's an expression in the fire service, and I believe the military too, is train like you fight and fight like you train. The last time you want it, the worst time to learn a technique is when you're doing it for the first time in anger, we would say, or on a fire ground. And it's the same as in the water. The first time you're doing something, sometimes it's unavoidable just because, like, the world of possibilities, right? But majority of rescues kind of happen in sort of a specific type way, and that's what we train for. So by learning that muscle memory, how to put a boat, we do certain skills, and I can run through them real quick. We learn to do certain types of turns on the water with the jet boat, because they behave differently, and anybody can go fast, but to go slow and be controlled and be able to make tight turns on a river actually takes a fair level of skill, and these gentlemen they're demonstrating it today. To be able to get up to a bridge, but one of the big dangers that you run into in rivers is that people will become like they'll have rafts and they'll be tied together, and they'll go around a bridge abutment on each side, and they'll have a rope, and things can go wrong, and a lot of people have lost their lives from that. So how do we clear that? How do we get people off that? If it's a stand-up paddleboard, they should never use a leash in moving water, because unfortunately people have gone both sides of a bridge and they've drowned. It's how to deal with those types of situations, right? Lots of times there's a happy ending with calls, and then a lot of times it's not, right? Because a person can be underwater and sometimes they're not noticed for a while, right? Just because they are underwater, right? So we learn how to deal with situations like that. I personally, I've rescued animals, I've rescued people, I've rescued equipment, all kinds of stuff. So there's no book that says this is how you do it, right? You build a basic toolbox of skills and you get it. Another skill the guys learn is the ferrying. So how to take a person in a controlled, slow, purposeful manner. And it just keeps the heart rate down, it keeps everybody calm. Because a lot of times when people are in the water, their heart rate's up and they're panicky. And so we work on that, just conditioning our minds just to bring calm to a situation. Basically that. And then how to put a boat into the shore. We have a regular shoreline around here, so you really have to learn how to put a boat to the shore safely and to create a safe space to work on a patient, stabilize them, get them out of the water, right?
Josh, thank you very much for your time. I'll let you get back to educating some firefighters.
My pleasure. All right, have a good day.
Today we're doing jet boat training, and from what I understand, this is sort of a recertification for a lot of the members. Do you already have your ticket for this kind of training?
Yeah, so we do a lot of in-house training kind of day to day, like when the season is obviously good for it. So we all have in-house training. This is bringing an outside agency in to learn some different techniques and get some different skills and also get time on the river.
I know that the river's fairly high today and moving a little fast. Does that lead to excitement for you guys to be able to kind of train in something that's not tepid and shallow?
Yeah, it's a different skill set. We generally like to do what we call practice like you play. So in one aspect, it would have been nice if the river was lower because that's normal conditions. For us, it is a little bit easier with it being deeper because we don't have to worry about as many hazards underneath the water. So, but it does add a different aspect to it, which is nice.
So you've spent a day in the classroom. Now you're going to get some practical experience. Could you kind of explain what you do in the classroom a little bit?
Yeah, so yesterday for about 2 hours, we did a PowerPoint presentation and we do a little bit of dry land work. So it's PowerPoint presentation. Then we came down here, we went over the boat, kind of maintenance, general maintenance, and kind of like wear and tear points that we might need to know how to service it kind of on the go. And then the afternoon yesterday and all day today has been on the water.
Well, it's pretty exciting to kind of see that the water is a little high and a little dirty.
Yeah.
When we were talking with the instructor, he was sort of saying that you were training for a couple of specific things. One is to do slow turns. One is to do ferrying. Do you have a favorite maneuver that you like to do on the water, or something that you use the most?
Favorite? The bridge abutments maneuvers are actually something that's interesting. So it's when you come up beside the bridge, you kind of tap the nose into it and then turn it to about a 45-degree angle. So if somebody got caught on the front side, it allows us to have a stable platform to work off of. So it's not a skill that's used very often, but it's a fun skill to do because it's different than just kind of driving around. So
we have firefighters that are going to be in the water today.
Yep.
What is your goal with them? Are you to try to get them to the shore? Are you practicing all kinds of safety with them, or is there a goal in mind when they're in the water?
Yeah, so right now, actually last week we had a different course, a swiftwater rescue course, which is more about the swimmers going in. This one we're focusing more on the jet boat operator side of things. So right now what we're doing, one of the drills is there's somebody in the water floating down. So the jet boat operator is going to be maneuvering the boat to be able to do what's called a pick-off. So get hands on the victim, and then we'll ferry across. We won't, for this evolution, we're not going to worry about bringing them onto the boat. We'll ferry them across to the shore, and then we'll restart the evolution. But it's all about the maneuverability of the boat is what we're concerned about.
Now, this boat can reach high speeds, and in this case, we're going to be doing very low speeds. What's kind of the difference in the handling between those two?
Because our boat's more of closer to a flat bottom than what you would typically see like in the ocean with that V bottom. At higher speeds, it's a little bit harder to maneuver. It tends to want to skip across the water than actually dig in and do those sharp turns. And because it's a jet boat versus a prop, at lower speeds, when you're turning, you have to be a little bit more careful that you don't suck air into the motor, and then that way, you lose all your propulsion. So it's finding that balance between high and low speed for maneuverability.
Now, on the boat, how many team members are on the boat at once?
Out here, we're doing 3. So we'll have 2 rescuers and then the jet boat operator. We're doing 2. There'll be 1 rescuer, and then the other guy is playing as the victim, and then 1 operator.
So how important is the communication between you guys?
Between the rescuer and the operator, it's very important. He's basically going to be at the bow of the boat directing the operator which way he should go to successfully make the catch of that patient. So communication is really important.
So if you weren't to make the catch on the first attempt, what happens then? Do you just swing around and try again?
Yeah, we could do that depending on the patient's level of consciousness. The rescuer might just immediately bail in, and then the boat will go and do a little lap so we can get hands on the victim right away to make sure that their airway's clear and they're not drowning. So that's typically probably what we would do. And then we bought ourselves time to get the boat back into a position that we need to get it into.
So how important is boat safe? Let's break this down for the people that are listening or watching, and they're, maybe they're only used to the river being a very slow meandering river, and it starts to be a little bit faster than they were expecting.
Yep.
What are some things that people could do when they're on the river to help themselves before they needed to be rescued?
To help themselves, like before an emergency actually happens. Yeah, so proper river safety is always important. So knowing the conditions. So right now we just had a large amount of water. The reason why it's brown is because it's a lot of runoff water. So a lot of stuff changes on that riverbed. Some trees, we did have some water going over the embankment, so some trees could have fallen in. So there could be hazards just underneath the water that you might not see. So being careful when you're by the banks, obviously being aware that, hey, maybe there's a big rock in the middle of the river that never used to be there, but because of that large amount of water that we had, it's now moved into different areas. And then as far as personal safety, always having a life jacket is very important. Making sure that if you're on a boat, you have extra fuel, you have water even, because you could be out there for a while. Flares, if you're kind of going towards that dusk or dawn time, can help us. So just general kind of safety stuff like that.
Well, Joshua, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, this is Brian again, and I'd like to ask you to do a favor. We can't do this work without people like you, so if you can, please like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends about Bring Back the Porch.